Tommy and welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing a camper and it's the first one that I've done ever, and I've seen like a lot of people do these campers or buses or cars or trailers and make them like livable little houses and rooms, but I've never done one before, so I really wanted to do that. And then on top of it, I was trying to come up with different houses that I could do this week, and I went on one of those pages where it was like top 15 iconic Nickelodeon houses or whatever, and the Wild Thornberrys house didn't come up because obviously they don't really have a house. They live in this camper and they travel like all over Africa, but then I was like, I don't really love all of these ideas, like some of them aren't as iconic as they're saying that they are. So I went and just on Google search images and searched like old Nickelodeon shows. And the Wild Thornberrys came up, and I was like, how can I find a way to incorporate the Wild Thornberrys onto my channel? Because I actually have done a Wild Thornberrys like create-a-sim video way back in the day, and I'll try and link it at the end of this video if I can find it. But if you go on YouTube and search the Wild Thornberrys, I think it's one of the first ones that comes up, create-a-sim. That was like one of my favorite videos that I ever did for a long time because I put a lot of effort into it, and I think they actually still look very close to what they should look like. But I wanted to do it again, and with this whole series, I actually, like yesterday, I did a Hey Arnold house, but I've already done Hey Arnold create-a-sim on my channel, which I don't think I said that either. And this series was kind of, for me, a little bit of trying to incorporate some of the older things on my channel that were really popular, because one of the first series I did when I started my YouTube channel was Nickelodeon, and that really did well. So I wanted to come back to this, but originally I always thought it would be a create-a-sim, like maybe I would go back and redo my create-a-sims, and that's still something that I want to do, by the way, like maybe go back to some of my earlier create-a-sims and change them and like redo them and revamp them. I think that that might be a little bit of a cool series to do. But I was like, why did I never do Nickelodeon houses? And then I thought to myself, well, they don't really have a house, but they do live in this trailer, camper, whatever you want to call it, and I want to build one. So it's basically like a double-decker bus, if you really think about it. It's got 2 levels, and I made it a fully fledged livable house. So the bottom floor has 3 bedrooms, one that Debbie and Eliza share, one for Donnie, and then one for the 2 parents. And the top floor is just one big bathroom, living room, kitchen area, and the very front is like designed to look like you could actually drive the bus away. And I love this. Like, I texted it to Nate and he was so impressed with it. I love this little house. It's making me want to do more trailers or campers and buses and trains and like those kinds of things, and it gave me so many ideas. One for Halloween that I'm not going to spoil, but I got a really good one for Halloween that's going to be coming up in my October videos. And actually, if you didn't watch yesterday's video, I built Hey Arnold's house, which is like a community home / apartment building. This is my Wild Thornberrys house. I have 2 more Nickelodeon builds coming out this week. And then on Monday, I have a Create-a-Sim challenge coming out that I talked about doing over on my Twitter. So if you follow me on Twitter, you already know what I'm doing. And after that, I'm jumping straight on into Halloween videos. So that's kind of what the channel is going to look like over the next month. And I have a collab coming out next month. And so many like challenges and weird ideas and things that I'm going to be making some custom content for. So I'm really excited for the content that's going to be coming out. But I did not expect this to turn out as decently as it did. And I'm really frustrated because, unfortunately for me, I built this on a lot that doesn't face the correct way. So when I was done building it, I put it up on the gallery and it does face like head on. So if you look at it, you're just seeing the front of the camper. And that's annoying for me because I wanted people to get the full effect and kind of see the sides, and that I managed to find a way to do tiger stripes and everything. But it is what it is. It is available for download on the gallery under my origin ID, theallegedsimmer, all one word. And yeah, it is fully livable. I believe everything is functioning. That's something that I need to get in the habit of doing when I finish a build, and I know that. I've never had anybody complain, but I know that sometimes I forget to test my houses before they go up on the gallery, and it's got to be aggravating for people if they download something and it's not working correctly, because that would aggravate me. So I need to get in the habit of doing that. But if you don't know this show and you're just like bearing with me and watching it, I want to talk about this show because it was actually one of the best Nickelodeon shows, I think. And I think it's so underrated and not a lot of people talk about it. Like, when you ask people about old Nickelodeon, they always say Hi Arnold. A lot of people are going to tell you Rocket Power. A lot of people are going to say Doug. But I rarely hear anybody talk about Wild Thornberrys, and I don't know why. Like, is it a hated show? Is it a show that people just really didn't love? Because I absolutely adored this show, and it was a show about a family that traveled around, I think, the African region of the world, and I believe that the premise was the parents were wildlife conservationists or wildlife scientists, or I think the mom was like a wildlife photographer maybe, or something like that, if I remember correctly. And the younger daughter in the show was the main character, and somewhere along the line she got the ability to talk to animals. And that was the whole premise of the show, that like every episode they would go out and help an animal, I believe, and like the main character, Liza Thornberry, could talk to the animals. And I think that if somebody in the show found out about her ability, she would actually lose it. Because if I remember, I think she was given the ability by like some ancient relic system, and it was like very clearly stated that if she got found out by anybody that she could speak to animals, that it would immediately be taken away from her. And I remember an episode where her older sister Debbie actually does find out about her ability, and it does get taken away from her. I think she ends up getting it back, but they also have a monkey that lives with them in the camper, and its name is Darwin, and everybody, like, it's always with Liza, and obviously if you watch the show, you know it's because she can talk to him, but everybody always kind of just assumes that the two of them are weird because they're always together, and I don't know, like, I don't remember exactly how it goes down, because I don't know if when she speaks to the animals, it sounds like she is, like, literally making animal sounds out of her mouth. I don't know if that's ever, like, clearly stated. But you know what the show reminded me a lot of, and, like, another TV show that I loved? There was this show on Disney Channel, and it's probably the same exact show, now that I think about it. And it was called Stanley. And it was a cartoon about a little boy, and every episode was about learning about a new animal. And I want to say that the main character, Stanley, could also speak to the animals. Or if he couldn't, then obviously the animals in the show probably just spoke. But I loved that show because it was literally like an entire show where every episode they would just teach you tons of stuff about an animal. And I was always down for those kinds of shows in general, just like in classes and in school. Working with animals was something that always interested me. Like, I always said for years that I was going to go to veterinary school. And even when I was in high school and, like, teachers would ask me, like, what are you going to go to college for? Like, what are your ambitions? I always said I was going to be a veterinarian. And I didn't end up doing it because realistically, I knew I was not the type of person to stay in school for another 8 years, which is so funny because if you know me, I was like straight A student, bookworm, high on a roll, graduating early. Like, I was really good at school. I never struggled in school. I never needed like help, and I always just like really got school. So people like me tend to stay in school for a really long time. But when I got out of high school, I was like, man, I really don't want to do that ever again. Like, I hated it. It was a horrible experience for me. And it had probably a lot to do with social stuff, but I'm not going to go into that because I think at some point, like I said in yesterday's video, there are so many stories that I want to tell about myself, but I'm going to end up putting them on my personal channel because I do not think that they belong on this channel. I don't know if people always care to hear like some of my stories. A lot of times, like, people want to hear about the build, which I understand, because it's kind of like 50-50. If you really, like, are invested in the person who is doing the video, then you probably want to hear their stories, or if the story is really interesting. But a lot of times people are like, no, just talk about the build, but I get it half and half. And so I try to do it half and half now. I try to like speak about the build a little bit and then tell like maybe a mini story or something like that. But regardless, I would probably put something like that on my personal channel because it seems more fitting to go over there. But I did not end up going to school for any kind of work with animals. But when I was going to become a cop, I was always very, very interested and always told people that I wanted to be a canine officer. It was actually more than anything, I wanted to be an officer that like worked worked with all kinds of animals. Like I wanted to be, oh my God, the term is escaping me right now, but animal control officer. That was something that was like really high up on my list. I wanted to go to school to learn about all the animals and like kind of incorporate the two worlds together. And I also am obsessed with the TV shows that are on Animal Planet about the cops, where they will go and save animals from that are like not being fed properly, being abused, being left out in the sun, and they will save the animals and then pursue charges against them. Like I love those shows, love them. So that was kind of what I was leaning towards. Even when I was going to be a cop, I didn't even want to work with people. I really wanted to work with animals. So I do think that if I continued on in that career path, that's where I would have went down. So it's kind of funny how it like always loops back to me being like interested in animals and wanting to work with them. And even as I've gotten older, my interest in animals does not die at all. Like I love a good zoo. I could spend hours at the zoo. Like picture me at the zoo surrounded around like a monkey cage with all of the little kids that are freaking out and their parents that are so annoyed because it's 1,000,000 degrees out and they've got to pay $25 for a chicken wing basket and they don't want to do that because they brought 6 kids and blah, blah, blah. And then there's me with just as much excitement as these children freaking out because the monkey is cute and the monkey's running around and the tiger is pretty and look at it sitting in the water. Like I love the zoo. And this past summer, I always have a tradition with Nate that we go to this zoo that's near where I live, and it's called York Animal Kingdom. If you live near me, you probably know right away. And we did not go this past year, and I'm like low-key devastated on the inside. It's not anything special, but when I went there for the first time, there were a couple things that really resonated with me, so I wanted to go like 1,000,000 times over, and I have gone every year except for this past one, and I know I'll end up going. Either if it stays open through October, I'll end up going sometime in October and maybe vlog it, maybe. And, or next year, whatever, that's fine. But they have an area where you can go in and pet like farm animals and stuff, which over the years has lost a little bit of lackluster for me because moving to Maine, when I did live in Maine, I ended up taking in a lot of farm animals because we had the land. So I still do have goats. Like I have a couple of goats. I know I don't talk about them very much, but I do have a couple. And I've had pigs, I've had chickens, I've had ducks, I've had like all sorts of ducks. I almost got peacocks at one point. A peacock is one of my favorite animals. It didn't end up working out, but I still like aspire to own them at one point in my life. And that zoo has like that area, so that doesn't really interest me anymore. But what they do have is an area where you can go and pet deer. So they walk in and it's like this enclosed area, and the deer just walk freely. And you can bring in food, obviously, to feed them. So if you have a handful of food, they'll just walk up and eat food out of your hands. And that like lured me right in. I was like, a deer gonna walk up to me and eat food out of my hand. I love that kind of stuff. So that really got me in. I also, there was a camel there, and I had got my first camel ride there, which I always like that kind of stuff because how many opportunities are you going to get in your life to do something like that? Like I always have wanted to do things like that. Like I picture one day me going to India and going to like an elephant sanctuary and not necessarily riding on them because they say that that's bad, but just being around them and like touching one, and it really would make my life if I could like touch an elephant. And another thing that happened the first time I went there was an exotic bird that got out, and the bird could not fly, or if it could fly, it didn't want to, and it was just walking around. And now in retrospect, looking back, I don't know if that was the safest thing, but I remember the bird landing in front of me and just looking at me, and it was like this 3-foot bird, and it was every color of the rainbow you've ever imagined. Not a parrot. It was definitely something way more exotic than a parrot. And it started to just like walk alongside me, and I was so happy. I cannot like express how happy I was. And they have a butterfly exhibit where you can go in and the butterflies will land on you and stuff. And they have one other thing that I feel like I'm skipping. Oh, they have like a pond where you can row like a boat, and you can go through, and the ducks will like jump on your boat and stuff, but it's just because they're hungry. And I've had ducks, so again, lost a little bit of lackluster over the years, but regardless, I just love it there. I really do. They have Madagascar lemurs, and those are like another one of my favorite animals. They have otters, which is my favorite animal. And I've actually like, every time I tell somebody this, they always look at me funny. But I'm going to tell you guys, because you understand me. You're going to get me. Having an otter, owning one, is probably, like, one of my biggest life goals. Like, but only if the situation is right, because I understand that I own, like, a somewhat exotic animal. I have a chinchilla, and I understand, like, what happens if you're not prepared to take care of an animal that is considered exotic. So I don't think I would ever actually get one as a pet if I was not 100% like ready and prepared in every single aspect, with like a large outdoor and indoor enclosure and like a bunch of knowledge about it. But that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to own a wildlife sanctuary, because I wanted to be able to keep and keep and work with and help rehabilitate otters and things like that like animals that I love, that I would love to have in my life, that I probably would never get to work with or have around me otherwise. But otters are my favorite animal. Followed very closely behind is foxes, and I would do pretty much anything to own one or the other or both. But it would be a lot of work, and it's not something that I am like saying that I see in my very near future at all, because a lot would have to go into it before I decided to make a decision like that. But anyway, you guys, this is the Wild Thornberrys camper, available for download on the gallery under my origin ID, The Alleged Simmer. Let me know what you've been thinking of these two Nickelodeon houses. What do you think I am going to be putting up tomorrow? What do you hope to see? Maybe I can work it into the near future if it's not already coming out. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and hit that little bell icon below to turn on post notifications so you can get updated every single time I post, and I will talk to you all in the next one.